So Javier Milei got elected as president of Argentina. What does that mean to Argentina and how that would affect Latin America? If you are curious about that, this video is for you. I'm going to be sharing 3 things that I think will happen once Javier Milei take power of Argentina. Without any further ado, let's get straight into the video of today. Now, the first thing I want to say is we need to understand that Milei is not a dictator. And the reason I'm saying this is because he has some plans which are very contrary to the mainstream. So important to understand that he's not a dictator. Argentina is not a dictatorship, it is a democracy, which means he will not be able to do everything that he wants to do because there is a parliament or a Congress. Now, to me, it's very good to see him being elected. Not necessarily because he's the savior and he's going to save Argentina, but because it shows to me that when the government pushes things too far, whenever there's a chance to change the direction of the government, the population will vote differently. So that to me is the biggest achievement of Argentina, is that people have actually voted for something different because they are not happy with the way that things were. Another thing that I want to say is Argentina is not El Salvador and it's not Panama. Panama and El Salvador have given up the idea of printing their own money and they have dollarized the economy. However, Argentina is a large producer of many things. Among those things, of course, agricultural products. So Argentina is a much large producer, for instance, than El Salvador and Panama. Now, Milei has a lot of controversial things on his plan. Now, one thing that I think is the main goal for him is to close the central bank, because the biggest issue that Argentina has is, of course, the inflation. Now, inflation, contrary to what most people think, inflation is actually the expansion or to inflate the money supply. That's what inflation is. And of course, once you increase the supply of any commodity, the likelihood, all else equal, is that commodity is going to lose value. Now, when governments print too much money, what happens is the money in circulation tend to lose value. That's what happened. Now, let's analyze what are the chances and what is the way in which Milei may or may not achieve his idea of closing the central bank. And for that, I'm going to oversimplify how central banks work. Most people believe the central bank can just print money. That's not true. The central bank works in a partnership with the government. The government has to issue an instrument or an authorization so that the central bank can issue currency. That normally happens with debt. So the government issues debt and then the central bank can issue currency. Basically, every bill in circulation is debt. So the government acquires a loan from the central bank. The central bank normally does not have the ability to just issue currency without the government issuing debt. Now, one way in which Milei can help to close down or solve the inflation problem, remember, inflation is the expansion of the money supply. So if Milei, as the government, does not authorize or does not issue more debt, what happens is the central bank will not be able to create more currency. That's one way in which he can solve the inflation problem, and also a way in which he can pretty much render the central bank obsolete, because if the central bank is the producer or the manufacturer of a commodity, which is the currency, then the government does not create the conditions where the central bank can create or issue more currency. It's like having a shoe factory that can no longer manufacture shoes. So whatever the central bank issue, which is currency, once Milei does not authorize or the government does not produce the conditions, that means the central bank could be just as good as closed. That's one way in which he can do it. The second way in which he can achieve this is, of course, saying and being able to pull it off a law or some emergency act where the population in Argentina can use any currency they please to do exchange value. So what happened is, today they're already using the dollar, but of course the government does not authorize the dollar. So that creates the black market. And Argentina have about 4 to 6 different rates for the US dollar. Now, once Milei says, listen, the population in Argentina is free to use whatever currency they want to exchange value, what will happen is the Argentinian population will now stop using the Austral, which is the Argentinian currency, and start to use dollar. And then, of course, less demand for the currency means decreasing value. That would mean that the Austral would go obsolete if he managed to pull off a situation where he can authorize Argentinians to use any currency they like. And of course, the third way in which he can do this is basically being able to cut a deal with the Congress, and then the Congress will authorize the closing down of the banking system. The third way, I think, is less likely to happen, but it is a possibility. Now, another thing that I want to point out to you guys, besides closing the bank, is that Milei labels himself an anarcho-capitalist or someone who sympathizes with the Austrian school of economics. That means he will have a regime where private property will be highly respected, and he will also try to reduce taxation. Now, if he manages to reduce taxation and demonstrate to international money that we will actually have private property being respected in Argentina, meaning there's no chance of the government confiscating or seizing private property, what's going to happen is private capital will come to Argentina. I can see a lot more investment increasing in Argentina if he managed to do this. And that will mean better jobs, and more investment in Argentina. So that's another thing that he tried to do. And if he managed to pull that off, Argentina will be receiving a lot of investment. At least that's my view. If you don't agree with me, please let me know that in the comments below. Now, the third thing that I think will happen in South America if Milei managed to pull off some things that he wants to do is he's going to get some friction or some conflict with countries in South America such as Brazil. Because according to him, as a representative of the government, he will refuse to make deals with communist countries. And he believes Brazil, Lula, to be a socialist or a communist leader. Therefore, government to government, he will not make deals with Brazil. He will not interfere, however, on the private sector dealing with Brazilian companies or the Brazilian government. But his government will not make any deals with Brazil, Bolivia, or other countries in South America that he believes to be run by a socialist or a communist regime. So this is it. Those are the three things that I think will happen with Milei assuming the presidence of Argentina. Now, you may ask how long it will take for those things to take effect. I think after 1 year, 2 years, we're going to start to see significant change in Argentina. At least that's my view. If you do not agree with me, let me know that on the comments below. Now, if you did like this video, please do share with someone else who you believe can benefit from this. Also, if you like the video, please like, subscribe, click the notification bell, and see you guys in the next video. Kaboom! Goodbye.